This seems like the year, if there's ever any year that you got to make the Super Bowl run. I mean, it's just typical Cowboys saying, I guess, since the 90s. But, I mean, you look at the future of Dak Prescott and some of the other hard decisions that are coming up. And it just seems like if it's not this year, like we were talking about it having a 3-year window, this definitely is not a 3-year window.
Yeah.
I mean, this is year 3 of the year 3 window. And at some point, you got to nut up or shut up.
You know how I feel, but I'm not going to say a word, but I will say one thing right now. How about them Cowboys?
On to the Dallas Cowboys.
All right. So you look at this team. Where do you see the strength in this team? I feel like we might have differing opinions.
I don't know. It's weird, man. This roster is weird. I mean, probably the corner room, the defensive backs.
I was going to go corner defense.
Either that or D-line, but I don't think their D-line's big enough to really stuff up the run unless Mazi got fat.
Yeah, so I was going to go corners, DBs. When you look at this corner room and you look at DaRon Bland, Jordan Lewis, Trevon Diggs, you look at the interceptions and you think they're might be a little inflated, but these guys, I mean, the haters always highlight the big plays made against them, but I mean, these guys are studs out there, and they're playing pretty well locked down corners. And Jordan Lewis is a starter a lot of places in the league, playing that third corner in Dallas, especially if we can keep Bland and Diggs healthy. Then last year, we talked about it last week, but Gilmore was just absolutely torched in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
it was sad to see, honestly. Like, they were clearly coming after him.
But I mean, if this corner room can stay healthy, I mean, they're gonna be very, very dangerous.
There's a
lot to like about Kalen Carson coming out of Wake Forest. A lot of guys like him. He's kind of been talked about as getting some, maybe not significant playing time, but definitely seeing the field quite a bit.
He's probably going for Jordan Lewis's job.
Yeah, Jordan Lewis probably out after this year either way, but yeah, if Kevin Carson can take over that role, that would be fantastic. A lot of people in the building still have a lot of hope for Nahshon Wright, and he's shown a couple of flashes in preseason games and stuff like that. But when he's actually seen significant snaps on the field, he really hasn't shown the potential you would like to see. But I mean, he's coming into year 3, or maybe year 4. I can't remember, but. Hey man, if he can just put it together, he's got the length. He seems to be pretty football savvy as well. So I mean, if he can just seem to put it together, and I mean, for him still being on the roster at this point is kind of a good sign. It means they still see something in him. But you would have really hoped to see him be able to contribute more significantly these past couple of years, and really hasn't got to that point yet. So some optimism there, but if he finds his way into a starting role due to injury or suspensions, anything else that can happen in the league, could be in trouble.
I have some takes with this cornerback room. First off, I think DaRon Bland is going to have the best year of his career and the worst interception numbers of his career.
I think interceptions are going to be down across the board with Dan Quinn gone. Yeah. Which I'm fine with as long as we can play good defense.
Mike Zimmer doesn't really, like, every defense coordinator wants interceptions. But Mike Zimmer does not value them the way that Dan Quinn does.
Yeah. It was a point of emphasis in the Dan Quinn offense, or Dan Quinn defense.
He's not going to have these guys jump and route the same way. And it's going to result in a lot less yards given up, too.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot less interceptions at the same time. But I think the yards given up will make a better defense. But I think Trevon Diggs is going to get in the doghouse at some point this year for jumping routes, because going back to him at Bama, he's a risk taker.
Yeah.
He's going to have a hard time adjusting to this scheme difference. I think DaRon Bland is young enough that he can be molded still. I'm not sure Trevon Diggs is getting molded. He's been paid. He knows what he is in this league, and I think he's gunning for interceptions, hell or high water first at least.
If he's still getting them, though, I think DaRon Bland is solid enough to where you could almost leave him on an island and not really shadow Diggs, but kind of maybe have that extra safety a couple of yards over in case a missed jump or something like that, because rarely does he just get beat. It's whenever he gives up the big play, it's because he's in position and he goes for the ball and misses.
Right, but I think Mike Zimmer is a red ass who's going to be pissed about that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Don't miss. You don't need to catch it. Just don't miss. That's what I see Mike Zimmer saying to him. And I think he's going to get put in the doghouse at some point. Doesn't mean he doesn't get out. Doesn't mean he has a bad year. But I think he is going to have a hard time adjusting to what Mike Zimmer wants at first.
Yeah, and I think that's to be expected, and I think that's a lot of what you do in the offseason is kind of drilling that into his head. It's like, hey, we're not asking you to take the ball away every opportunity. If we can force some 3 and outs, we're that's just as good of as a turnover. And so, I mean, I think that's going to be kind of drilled into him, but at the same time, he will take his shots. You look at the safety room: Malik Hooker, Donovan Wilson, and Mukwamo, who a lot of people really like Mukwamo in this defense.
I really like Mukwamo.
Yeah,
it's a pterodactyl.
Yeah, so I mean, really excited to see what this transition is, because led the league in turnovers for 2 years in a row, and that sounds great on paper, but you don't really realize at the time, and then you look back and watch film, that's like not every turnover is equal. Like there were some turnovers, especially like pick sixes, that I felt like almost hurt the game in a whole, because you're just giving the ball right back to your offense or right back to their offense. You're keeping your offense off the field where they can't catch a rhythm. And it's like, if you get a pick six and then the offense gets the ball back, they go down and score, it basically evens out. And then your offense goes 3 and out. And then all of a sudden they have the ball again. Like, it is one of those things where it sounds stupid to say, but at the same time, it's like, it's not always good to get a pick six. No. Like, sometimes you need the ball in your offense's hands, and your defense needs to prevent them from scoring. And
even from the same standpoint, your 4th turnover against last year's New York Giants shouldn't count as a full turnover.
Yeah.
Like, it just should. Like, it's not fair. It's like mercy rule at that point.
Yeah.
But looking at the linebacker room, Jay, what do they got here?
So DeMarvion Overshown looked great last year before he was hurt. Hopefully he can.
In the preseason,
we never saw any meaningful snaps, but everybody in the organization loved him. They were very, very excited for him. They thought he was going to be a key contributor. So I mean, if he can get some good snaps, I know Eric Kendricks is kind of getting older, but I know Zimmer loves him. He's a Zimmer guy, and if he could just be that leader that this defense needs. I think we're good there. Damone Clark, he wasn't bad. I mean, I would say he's probably just a little bit worse than league average, which at a position like linebacker, if you're not spending the money, it's not the worst place to be. But yeah, when you have an undersized D line, you kind of wish you would have some more beef at your linebacker spot, and that's where Leighton Vander Esch thrived. I mean, he wasn't necessarily huge, but he played big. Damone Clark doesn't have that. He's very technical. It's never going to be his fault, but he could also be the reason why they convert on 3rd and 1 for a 2-yard gain.
Yeah.
At the same time. So.
Marquise Bell's the same way. I mean, Marquise Bell's a safety.
Yeah, but I don't know how much
he's linebacker.
I don't know how much he'll be playing linebacker in the Zimmer offense.
No.
That was more of a Dan Quinn deal.
That's true. He's probably more of a rover player. Like he's
playing
absolutely. A hybrid spot.
Yeah.
And then on the D line, what the hell did Dan Quinn do to my Mazi Smith?
I don't know, but Mike Zimmer.
I was texting you week 2, and I was like, "What did that man do to Mazi Smith?"
Yeah,
this is
it was criminal, man, and we don't have the best track record with Michigan D linemen apparently in recent history, and a lot of people still have a lot of hope for Mazi Smith. I know when Mike Zimmer got in the building, one of the first things he did was immediately go to Mazi Smith, get with a personal trainer and a dietitian about getting weight put back on in the right way. Basically said he straight up kind of called Dan Quinn out as soon as he got in the building, and it's like this is criminal. But he seems to really, really like Mazi Smith a lot. Also, Odighizuwa, I know Cowboys play a lot of primetime games, so even if you're not a Cowboys fan, you probably have a decent understanding of this team. But when this dude's on, he's one of the best D tackles in football. I mean, I definitely wouldn't put him up there with the elite, but I mean he's right below him in that tier of good to very good, but always solid. Loved him coming out of college wrestler.
Yeah, I think the way I would describe it is he's not the most scheme versatile guy, but within the right scheme, he can be very good.
Losing Dorrance Armstrong, I love that guy. And he was probably more of a Dan Quinn guy, so it's Dan Quinn played such a specific solid defense that you really don't know how much you're gonna miss guys that whenever he's not in the building, like how they would do. And I think that kind of like when him going out and signing 3 or 4 Cowboys, like you could tell which guys were Dan Quinn guys and which guys could probably still be okay in a different system. If Mazi Smith can put on good weight, be a key contributor, I think this D line will be fine. And then looking at our edge positions, Sam Williams is incredible.
So
when this dude's healthy,
I knew Sam Williams was a hellcat on the edge as a pass rusher coming out of college. I didn't actually watch much tape of him because I didn't think he'd get drafted because of the legal issues.
Yeah.
But I knew his numbers and I knew his profile enough. When I turned on the tape the other day to watch this D line, I did not realize just how thick this dude is.
Yeah, he's thick, and his first
this dude
step
can play the run, man. Like, he is strong.
His first step is one of the best in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he is a find. Like, I mean, I understand why he fell in the draft the way he did, but like the talent is
he's already had some legal issues in Dallas too, which is concerning. But and then DeMarcus Lawrence is just the model of consistency at an edge position. He can rush the passer. He's one of the best edge guys in the league against the run. I mean, he's gonna. He kind of flashed, what was it, 7 years ago when he got the big contract, had the big, was it 17 sack season, and then kind of fell off the national stage from there. But I mean, he's been one of the best in the game since then.
It's more role related at this point than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, he can provide you good sack numbers.
Yeah.
But if his role is base end, he's a damn good base end.
He's one of those guys where in 10, 15 years, after he retires, would not be surprised in the slightest if he slides into the Hall of Fame after being on the ballot for a while. And then people in 2045 will be like, oh, it's just Dallas getting the Dallas treatment. But no, I mean, this dude is the model of consistency. Just very, very good. I mean, yeah, I love DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that might be I don't know if he's going to be a Hall of Fame guy.
No, that's what I'm saying. Not immediately, but if he's sitting on the ballot for about 10 or 15 years, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets in on a weak year or something. That was kind of more what I was saying.
I see what you mean then.
Especially if he plays 5 more years.
Yeah, 5 more years. Yeah, then you start to really, you start to get the Frank Gore question of
yeah. But I mean, just having a really, really high peak and just being really solid to good the rest of your time. I mean, I feel like a lot of those guys kind of get in after sitting on the ballot for a while.
So overall, like, I get the feeling with this D line that the talent went down, but I think they might be better. And that doesn't really add up. I just think the scheme change and the scheme difference and what they're asked.
I think Mike Zimmer's
going
to make a huge difference in this defense. Yeah.
Like, again, I don't think the stats will be as good, but I think they will be better football players on
it depends on which stats you're looking at. I think points per game might be a little bit better. Yards per game is going to be probably better. Like turnover numbers might not be there.
Goes up, individual stats go down.
Yes, yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't like. Micah's really the only guy who can probably flash and be really high in the sack numbers, but
even then, he's probably going to be tasked with playing the run heavier though.
Yeah,
which is going to eat into his sack numbers a little.
I think looking at this defense, if we could play good defense, force some 3-and-outs, stuff like that, because that was the thing about the Dan Quinn defense. If we didn't force the 3-and-out, like we were staying on the field, we couldn't get off the field unless it was a turnover. And so it's like if we're not turning the ball over, they're scoring. Is kind of how it felt with Dan Quinn, to where with Zimmer coming in, I'm really excited to see maybe just some good solid defense where we'll see 5-play drives, 6-play drives, stuff like that, and really be able to hopefully take over a game with our offense, which if you want to switch over to the offensive side of the ball, I haven't heard, but I'm assuming McCarthy is keeping. If McCarthy's not keeping play calling, then just fire him, because I talked about it last year, how it was damn near criminal that he's been the coach for as long as he has and just took over play calling like week 5 last year, and then we just immediately became the best offense in the league. It was just like, what the fuck have you been doing? Like, our offense has kind of struggled under you since you've been in the building. So I'm assuming he's keeping play calling duties, but
I believe he is.
I thought
I read that.
Okay. I was about to say, I haven't seen for sure. I've just assumed that. So yeah, you look at this offense, and so CeeDee didn't go to camp, obviously. He's got contract issues, but it's one of those things where.
Can we talk the contracts?
Which one?
Contracts. Like, CeeDee and Dak, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think this might be Dak's last year.
Yeah, I kind of do too. Is it Trey Lance season?
It's one of those things where it's like everybody loves everybody type deal. But people really seem to be high on Trey Lance. And I mean, he gave up a 3rd-round pick for him. Not nearly what San Francisco invested in him, but
if
people really, really like Trey Lance.
If your plan is to move on to Trey Lance, does that not make it make more sense to keep McCarthy for another year, because he's the guy who has developed Trey Lance and that's the relationship there?
I think if McCarthy, he won a lot of people over. I was never a big McCarthy guy, even from the hire. I think he showed a lot last season. I think that was kind of his defining moment as a Cowboys coach. And I mean, I know it didn't end well, obviously, but my biggest frustration is like what has been going on the rest of the time you're here. And it's like, but I mean, I think if he can have any sort of replicated success from last year, I think he sticks around no problem. I don't know if we run it with Trey Lance. I don't know if they go out and get somebody else, but a lot of people seem to like Trey Lance in the building. Dak has never really committed to really being the long-term guy in Dallas. I mean, he intentionally signed a shorter deal so he could make more money in the future. But it's like
he's played the Kirk Cousins card. Played the Kirk Cousins card, and it's a league where if you want to win big,
you could sign a long-term deal and
Pat Mahomes, Tom Brady card.
Yeah. And I mean, there's ways to go about it to where you can still make your money and also help out the team. Like Pat Mahomes, $500 million, but you signed for 10 years. Stuff like that. To where like he intentionally signed a short deal so he could get back to the market quicker. And he doesn't really speak on it, but he has family speaking out on his behalf all the time, which is always weird when his brother's talking about it and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things where it's like, I'll never talk about anybody and getting their money. I mean, it's a not for long league. Get paid while you can, take care of your family, all of that. but you can't play both sides of it if that's your goal. And I think Kirk Cousins was kind of backed into the corner and played it very well, to where Dak in that scenario, it's like it kind of seems like it's the driving factor. And going into this contract, I mean, it's already like turning into a nightmare scenario. So wouldn't be surprised if this is his last year. But if it is, I've kind of been on record as not the biggest Dak fan. I think last year, or I don't think last year was his best year. He's really started showing command of an offense and kind of taking over games where we hadn't seen in the past. All of his big games kind of came garbage time and stuff like that, where he had great numbers, but you really kind of look into it and it's like beating up on bad teams and stuff. Like, I thought he played well in a lot of big moments last year, which historically was not the case. I mean, there was a few games
he did have his struggles against the good teams.
Yeah,
but I mean, it was less than the previous years, but they were still there.
Yeah, no, they're still there. I mean, and that's kind of always been the thing with Dak. So it's like,
I wouldn't even say against the good teams, against the more structured defenses and the more
he's one of those guys,
exotic looks.
He's one of those guys where if he doesn't start well, it just seems like he can't get back on track, to where he did a few times last year, where he would start slow and come on strong, which we hadn't seen historically from Dak. So that was kind of the bright shining moments for him. But it's such a strange thing in the NFL, because like, I think in a perfect scenario, he absolutely can win a Super Bowl, but everything has to be perfect. And it's like, how much do you pay a guy like that? That's like, you can win with him, but you're probably not going to win. He's probably not going to dig you out of a hole. Like, and there's not many guys like that either. So it's with the quarterback position, it's so tough because it commands so much money, and it's just one of those things. What do you do? And it's like, we're in the Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady era of football, to where, yeah, we're not winning Super Bowls, but like, neither is anybody else.
I think you could argue there's more guys like Dak who aren't going to dig you out of a hole, but you can win a Super Bowl with. I mean, I think the league is littered with those guys.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They're paid big money, but like, they can't get over that hump. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about this.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, how much do you invest in a guy like that?
I actually think a big problem that's popping up with that, the slated rookie contracts. The slated rookie contracts give teams with a rookie contract quarterback such an advantage. It wipes out the advantage of having an above average quarterback.
At the same time,
because they can build such a monster team around guys who deserve big money.
So in Dak's situation, we found the rookie quarterback that was cheap, but he hits market a lot quicker when he's a 4th round pick compared to a 1st round pick.
Right. But imagine if, I don't know, in that same time frame, Carson Wentz was paid like Matt Stafford was as a rookie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it would be a completely different playing field.
Yeah.
And the advantage of having a Dak Prescott would be so much bigger than it is.
It's going to take,
because of slated rookie contracts.
It's going to take a guy who is I would say Dak, Jalen Hurts, a lot of these guys are in that 8 to 13 range. Mm-hmm. It's going to take one of those guys taking a significant pay cut compared to the league average, which they're still going to be making incredible life-changing money, to really maybe get over the hump for some of those guys. Like, you have, I think there's maybe 5 quarterbacks in the league that you have them on your team, you pay them the money, and you'll figure out the rest. To where you have guys like Dak Prescott, it's like, you have a great team around him. If everything is perfect, we can win. But when things start falling apart, you don't have that same level of confidence.
Right. Yeah.
So I think it's going to take a guy being in that skill range taking a team-friendly deal to maybe change things. But like I said many times over, I'll never criticize a guy for getting as much money as he can, especially in a league that makes as much as the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
And some of what these guys make is pretty criminal compared to how much value they provide to the sport and everything, and in a league that any given moment could be your last play on the field. So I'll never criticize it, but I mean that's what's going to have to change for some of those guys. But moving on, looking at the rest of this offense, I mean I think Jake Ferguson is a rising star in this league.
He is.
I
love me some Jake Ferguson. A year ago, I thought he was not real, but now I know he's real.
I mean, I remember we talked about it last year, and you asked me, like, what do you like about Jake Ferguson? Like, I looked at his numbers, and it's not great. And I just told you, like, I don't know, just watching him, it seems like he's always making a play. And, like, I remember you read me all of his stats, and you're like, yeah, I mean, I just don't. I don't understand why you love this guy so much.
And I wasn't trying to challenge you. I just
no.
Understand.
I'm just saying, like, because I didn't even realize, like, to me, he was a lot better than his stats were the previous year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just like, I don't know. I just love this guy. Like, when you see him on the field, like, you just love him. And then last year he really shined. And I remember you texted me like week 7, and you're like, you were right about Jake Ferguson.
Yeah.
But I love this guy. Then hopefully we can get Luke Schumacher and Peyton Hendershot both have played well at that tight end. So I really wouldn't be mad with some double tight end sets and stuff moving forward.
I think they're lining up for more 12 personnel this year with what their wide receiver room looks like.
Yeah. Brandon Cooks came on strong at the end of the season, man. I was really disappointed with him early on, but he hit a groove probably around week 8, week 9, kind of shortly after McCarthy took over play calling, and he got more involved in the offense, was running good routes. He is getting older, though. CeeDee was the most surprising for me because, I mean, I really thought I've always liked CeeDee, but I mean, he was targeted. He might have been the most targeted receiver in NFL last year.
Over the last 9 games of the year, Brandon Cooks had almost 500 yards, so pacing like 950 on a season. So yeah.
But CeeDee Lamb might have been the most targeted receiver in the NFL last year. I'm not positive on that.
CeeDee Lamb's just that dude, man.
Really force fed him, but I mean, he really stepped up. And
I was on my Bears podcast earlier today, and we had Arif Hassan on to talk Vikings.
Yeah.
And one of the questions for him was, how would you describe the Vikings offense? And his answer was making stuff work for Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
And I feel like the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb are very similar to that.
Yeah.
You can structure a lot around that player because he's that good.
We really just need one of these other guys to a lot of people like this rookie out of South Missouri.
Ryan Flournoy, Chicago native.
They really like him in the building, but
dude dunked on some fools at the Senior Bowl, man.
Yeah, Tolbert was a 4th-round pick last year.
He's got traits,
and he's looked really, really good so far. But like I've said multiple times tonight, like everybody's a Hall of Famer in training camp. So
hey, he was burning up Bradbury against the Eagles last year.
Yeah. But yeah, there's some things to like, but if we can get some good production out of another receiver not named CeeDee Lamb or Brandon Cooks, I think we're going to be in for another really, really nice year, especially with Jake Ferguson on the at tight end. And then you look at this running back room, and there's not a lot to like at first, and I won't argue with anybody that it's like a good running back room by any means, but I think you're going to see some really good production out of this room. I think Zeke is a very intelligent player. He's one of the best pass blocking running backs in the league, and he gets in the end zone, and that's where we struggled last year. Tony Pollard couldn't punch it in. I think Rico Dowdle can play between the 20s pretty well. To kind of pick up some of that slack, that burst that Zeke does not have anymore. But I mean, I think we can get some really efficient running out of Zeke, especially inside the 20s. Outside the 20s, I think Dowdle, maybe a little Royce Freeman, Deuce Vaughn. I don't really know where Deuce Vaughn fits in this. Anyway, fullback kind of plays more of a running back, but I mean, he had
Hunter
some
Lepke.
Hunter Lepke. There we go. He ran the ball pretty well last year in some spots. So, but I just don't. We're not going to rely heavily on the run, obviously. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, if our receivers can do their thing, Jake Ferguson do his thing, it's going to open up the run lane big time. And like I said, I think Rico Dowdle can play well between the 20s, and then when we get inside that red zone, I mean, Zeke feeds on that end zone. So, I'm not sitting here really, really hoping for it, but I mean, if we can get 500 to 700 yards out of Zeke, assuming he's going to get 15 or 20 carries a game, with Dowdle getting about 10 to 15, I mean, I think we can get 1,200 yards out of this backfield pretty easily. And I really, 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 really like this O-line a lot. Terrence Still's been...
As I'm thinking this through, I think Jalen Tolbert is going to need to play a lot because he's a good blocker.
Yeah. And
I think you're going to need to be able to run the football out of 11 personnel to make the run game work, because you're going to need to force teams out of heavy defenses. You're going to need to force light boxes for this run game to work.
I think they're going to do a lot of. I think they're going to check. You're going to see. I don't think you're really going to see a lot of like the same formation. I think that's where Mike McCarthy kind of excelled at the end of the year, bringing in tight ends, bringing in an extra receiver, kind of going back and forth. And I think that helped out the offense a lot. And then a lot of pre-snap motion he was doing later in the year as well helped him kind of hit a stride. But looking at this offensive line, Terrence still can stay healthy. He's been a fantastic right tackle for us. He got paid, not a huge contract, kind of a he definitely got what he was worth, but I think he might have gotten more if he had hit the open market. So pretty good deal on that. And then,
so he was playing hurt a lot of last year. So it was 2 years ago he played really well, and then last year he really let down. But he was playing hurt a lot, and they're hoping that they get back to the guy he was 2 seasons ago, because even the tape I saw from last year, it was tough at times. But if he is fully recovered, he should be back to being a pretty solid right tackle.
Yeah. I'm excited for Terrence Steele for sure. And then Tyler Smith was All-Pro guard last year. Absolutely fantastic.
Did he make All-Pro last year? I didn't realize he did.
I'm almost positive.
I think he's good enough to I love Tyler Smith, but I just didn't realize he actually got the recognition.
Yeah. Losing Tyron Smith at left tackle, I mean, it was about time for him to go. I mean, he was such a solid piece of that offense for a long time, but
good.
When he's on the field, he's so good, and he played a lot last year. But I think he had the longest consecutive snap streak up until like 5 years ago after Joe Thomas retired, and then like the first time he got hurt, it just seemed like his back could never really stay healthy. Then last year was really the first time he'd been healthy in quite a while. But it's hard to be like, oh, you're rock solid for a long time. Then you had injury concerns for about 3 years straight and had one good season to keep them around. So, I mean, I think it was about time to move on from him. And then Tyler Guyton, man, it's like when the Cowboys pick an offensive lineman, it's always somebody that I'm like, well, I don't know. And they always seem to make it work. So, I mean, I have trust that he's going to be able to figure out that left tackle position. And
so Tyler Guyton cleaned up at the Senior Bowl day 1, and then day 2 he kind of fell back down to earth, and day 3 he landed in the middle. So you saw him kind of go through the full progression of really good, really bad, and then like good. And he's so raw. If I'm being honest, at the Senior Bowl, I couldn't. Well, before the Senior Bowl, I couldn't get my hands on his tape because it's only 1 season of tape, and Oklahoma did not it was just hard to find their tape going into it, and so I was going into it pretty much blind, outside of just hearing Dane Brugler saying, "Once you see this kid, you're gonna get it." You're going to understand. And once I saw him, I understood. Like, there is a smooth athleticism that he has that is rare, but he has no idea what he's doing half the time. So, like, it's a really weird balance. I think Cowboys fans are in for a rough first half of the season with him, but I think it's going to be worth it in the long run because I think he has so many traits. He can be such a good football player if stuff starts to click for him. And there's a lot of reasons to think stuff will start to click for him based on the way that he has learned in such a short period of time. But it's just hard to know. With their O-line coach, I do think he will figure it out.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I kind of stopped questioning first round offensive lineman for the Cowboys. So I'm just hoping and praying he's good. But I mean, the biggest concern for this team is at the center position, obviously.
Who is Brock Hoffman?
He's a stud, dude.
Where did he come from?
Where did he go?
He is not a real person.
Cotton Eye Joe. Yeah.
Right over my head.
I don't know, but he looked decent at times last year, but I mean, of all the guys that get media love and like love from beat writers and stuff like that, I mean, he seems like the guy that they are really, really, really loving this offense.
Out of high school, he committed to Georgia Southern University, and then he waffled on it to go to Coastal Carolina. And then
something about the Chanticleers, baby.
And then 2 years later, he waffled on them to go to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
That's who Brock Hoffman is.
That is who Brock Hoffman is.
I don't blame him. It sounds like he upgraded and then upgrade again to get his name out there. Good for him.
Yeah, he's a gym nut. He's incredibly strong. He's like the big like meathead locker room guy that you see in movies. Apparently, just like anytime like there's a football movie and there's like a guy in the background just like yelling, like putting up like 350 on the bench like 7 times, like that seems to be him. He plays angry. He's everything you want as far as like mentality and everything goes. So hoping he wins this job, but we got a guy out of Kansas State, Cooper Beebe, that we love too. So it's like
I feel good about the floor at the position because you have Cooper Beebe.
Yeah,
but like,
and I think we're gonna figure it out
Cooper
one
Beebe
way or
does
the
have
other.
His limitations though. Like I know he tested really well athletically, but as a mover, the dude moves like a refrigerator. He's just too thick, too wide. Like he is physically limited in the way that he can fit through spaces. And there's only so many times where bowling through it, like where breaking through a doorway is good. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you need to get through the doorway.
Yeah, so when this draft first happened, I thought there was like a slight possibility they were still going to play Tyler Smith at left tackle, Brock Hoffman at center, and play Cooper Beebe at guard, and then maybe sit Tyler Guyton for a year, or just kind of let him ease into it, and then kick everybody back in and figure out the center position from there. But it's looking like day one they're going to keep Tyler Smith at guard, Zach Martin at guard, with Terrence Steele and Guyton on the bookends.
The dude's still doing it, man. I got a bunch of clips of him, and he is just
I mean, I don't want to gloss over Zach Martin, but at this point, it's like Hall of Famer. Like he's fantastic. He's the model of consistency. He's been one of the best players in the league for year after year. I mean, he kicked out to tackle a couple of years ago when we had injuries. He was just fantastic at tackle. Yeah. Hadn't played tackle since college. Was just incredible at right tackle for like 3 games. Like I think he was like one of like PFF's like highest rated tackles in a 3-game stretch. Like hadn't played it in his 8-year career. Just incredible. Just a dog. Like what else can you say about Zach Martin? It's just, you love to have him on this team. So. Yeah, I mean, a lot of optimism here. 10.5 win total. One in the division at plus 155. This seems like the year, if there's ever any year that you got to make the Super Bowl run. And I mean, it's just typical Cowboys saying, I guess, since the 90s. But I mean, you look at the future of Dak Prescott and some of the other hard decisions that are coming up. And it just seems like if it's not this year, like we were talking about it with on the Philadelphia about having a 3-year window. This definitely is not a 3-year window.
Yeah.
I mean, this is year 3 of the year 3 window. Like at some point you got to nut up or shut up. And I mean, I have the argument all the time with Philly fans, with Niner fans, and I guess Philly did win their title. About the argument of like, well, they'll say like, oh, they always choke in the playoffs. And I'm like, well, what is choking in the playoffs if you're getting there? Because it's like the 49ers have lost 3 Super Bowls in the past 10 years. Mm-hmm. It's like, would you rather lose 3 Super Bowls? Like, what difference does it make if you're not winning a title? So it's like
first or last.
Yeah, the playoff success really it means nothing to me. I mean, you got to win in the playoffs, but it's like we've been dominated by 2 quarterbacks for going on 30 years now.
If I'm just looking at this roster and I'm ignoring contracts, this is a team that's a year away to me.
Ignoring contracts, yes. Especially with the young guys. The offense more so than defense.
Well, even on the defense, I'm like, I don't know what I have up the middle with Mazi Smith and Golston. This is a learning year for me.
Yes.
Where you can make the playoffs, but I don't think if contracts are out of the equation, I'm not expecting a Super Bowl. But because of the contracts, it's like this Dak needs to be more than he has shown to be. Yeah. Because this is the last shot.
If we can see a similar version of 2023 Dak, I think. I mean, the top end of the NFC is going to be very, very tough, but I don't see any reason why this team can't win 11 or 12 games. And it's just going to come down to what you do in the playoffs, which has been the Dallas Cowboys for 30 years now. But I mean, like I said,
the value bet I'm taking here is probably the over 10.5.
Yeah, I think.
I've got them at 10 wins, but you're telling me I can get plus 164 at 11.
They've won
that's one difference.
They've won more than 10 games every year. Dak and McCarthy have been together, except the broken ankle year. I wouldn't expect any difference this year. I mean, I think this defense is going to keep people lower scoring, to where historically especially under Dan Quinn, if we didn't score at least 24, we probably weren't winning. Well, except in the games where we would like throw a shutout and score 40. But if the other team scored more than 20, we weren't winning most of the time. It seemed like. So
yeah. So week 1, you got the Amari Cooper revenge game going into Cleveland, and then week 4, Dak Prescott going to the New York Giants, Thursday Night Football. Dak's won 12 straight against the Giants. We both got the Cowboys in that.
12 straight is crazy.
I know. That's why I put it there. It's insane.
That's another thing that when people talk about Dak Prescott, he wins in the division.
Mm-hmm.
Like that has been loses to every AFC team, it feels like, but he wins in the division.
And then I can't believe this Lions-Cowboys game isn't a primetime game. After
it's criminal.
The controversy over last year's Lions-Cowboys game in primetime. Like,
and being Lions-Cowboys just in general, you got 2 of the best teams in the NFC on top of that.
Yeah. And then in week 8,
especially when you think of Dallas Cowboys, they get every primetime game that they can get.
Like, I know they run up against the limit. I would just think Lions-Cowboys would be like at the top of the league.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cowboys 49ers won 3 straight against Dallas. We both have the 49ers making it 4 straight. Cowboys Falcons in week 9. Kirk Cousins is 2-9 against Dallas and facing off with his former head coach in Mike Zimmer.
I was at one of the wins, and it was a Sunday night primetime game. One of his 2 wins. And me and my whole family just talked all week. We were like, oh, Kirk Cousins in primetime, talking so much shit. And Vikings went out there and just destroyed us.
Then week 11, you got the battle for Texas, Texans and Cowboys. Texans are 2-4 against Dallas all time.
Always play them close,
winning
though.
That one. Week 12 and week 18, the Cowboys play the Commanders, and Mike Zimmer can show Dan Quinn how to call defense.
Yeah, I'm really excited for those games.
And then week 13, you got the Giants again on Thanksgiving, and Dak Prescott may have won 13 straight against the Giants at this point, maybe.
Yeah.
So overall, I've got the Cowboys at 10-7. You've got them at 12-5.
Yeah, a lot of optimism for this team. I mean, the signs of weakness are clear signs of weakness, but like I said, I mean, I think there's enough there to, if it goes right. I mean, and really, I mean, what we're looking for is Parsons can't fall off at the end of the season like he has the past couple of years. I mean, I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know what it is. But yeah, he just kind of ghosts on the end of the season. And after, like, he's been 2 years in a row, like the leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year going into like week 12. And then all of a sudden, like, you look up at the end of the season and you're like, oh, Micah Parsons is still playing. Like, and you can see it on the film too. It's crazy. It's not just on the stats.
You need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. We need more dogs.